Hi, Michelle. I'm finishing up a snack and keeping my camera off till I'm all done.
Sounds good, Maggie. Thanks. Maggie, will you let me know when you want something up? I'm going to have to go in and open each new document as you ask me, so it may take a few minutes in between, okay?
Sure, I'll send you a message in the chat to queue things up. Hey, welcome everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
is 4 o'clock on the dot. We're going to give people another minute to get present and gathered. In the chat, I'm going to put a reminder off of renaming your Zoom.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hey, Jen.
Hi. Let's see, I think, sorry to start a little late. I feel like we were consolidating a lot of information all at the same time. All right, I think, let's see, just confirm. Erin's here, Vivian's here, Jennifer's here, Leah's here. I'm never sure who is Robin Honda.
We're using her computer just so
oh, that's right.
Have another option.
And then Felicia just joined us. We are missing Hillary, I think. And Adam. And we have Alyssa. Yeah. Welcome, Felicia. I know you were at jury duty today.
All kinds of.
And there's Carrie. And Michelle, have you or Jason, have you heard from Adam Hobbs at all? I reached out to him, but I did not hear back from him.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Michelle, I'm sending you the link to the PowerPoint. I think you're in it.
And then Ray, we're missing Ray. There's Hillary. Hi, Hillary, welcome.
Leah, my niece is in your class, and so I get to see glimpses of you throughout the day when she's doing her schoolwork.
Okay.
Miss Noah.
Yeah, well, I think she's trying to take my job.
It sounds like it.
She's good though. She's good.
Maggie, do you have the agenda you want to put up, or is Michelle able to put the agenda up?
Link it here.
I can put it up. Maggie just sent it to me.
Okay, everyone, welcome. It is 4:04, so we can get started. Thank you, everyone, for making time on this foggy Tuesday. I was just checking in with a colleague who lives in Long Beach. Apparently, it's sunny everywhere but the South Bay right now. So the Hermosa is completely socked in, and it's sunny elsewhere. But glad everybody was able to make it. If we could move to the next slide, Michelle, please. Just a reminder about your Zoom names. You can put your pronouns in your stakeholder group and retitle that. You can do that by clicking in your top right-hand corner. There's the 3 little dots, and you can do that. Next slide, please. So just spending a little bit of time on what we're hoping to achieve today. I think what is just evident from the work is we get to keep going deeper and deeper in how we do this. So this will be our 3rd session together, and we spent that first one kind of going over norms and guidelines, and then started on the data process. And our next 3 meetings are really going to be all about the data, and then coming to some recommendations off of what we find from the data. So Everybody, we talked last time in our opening question about being brave, even if it's uncomfortable and makes you feel vulnerable. Like doing the work during this group time is going to be so important for us to be able to come together as a group and make sure that we are aligning on the right benchmarks for the district. And so with that, we have our outcomes over there. We're going to keep going through the CAST data today, and then hopefully have a little bit of time to start looking at the California Healthy Kids Survey. We're also going to hopefully come to agreement around an equity definition that we can at least put in the parking lot to like sit and think with. So I'd like us to be able to really be intentional with our time around the equity definition. And thank you to everybody who sent in suggestions. And then similar off of our governance mission and vision suggestions, we'll spend some time on that. And that document is important for the group just to help us come to terms with how we want to work. We'll be doing that data dive at the end, and then we just have an exit ticket. Jen and I were former classroom teachers and just love these exit tickets to make sure that people have something to leave with as a little bit of homework before we end the call. As always, please send over things that we're collecting a list for the parking lot. So for their items that we want to get to, and Jen and I are just going to be mindful of how we build them into the agenda. So if there are things that you think are important that this group needs to discuss that hasn't been brought up yet, it doesn't mean it won't. We just need to elevate it and make sure that it's staying in the consciousness. So I will pause there and see if there's any questions off of the framing before we move on. Excellent. If we could move then to the next slide, please. Norms and agreements. We'll just take one quick minute here. And if you can give me a thumbs up, thumbs down to make sure we are aligned on how we want to be present in the meeting today. Thank you for those thumbs up from everyone. Awesome. Okay, next slide, please, Michelle. Okay, and then a choice of icebreakers. Again, a lot of the icebreaker work is to build this community because it is important that we're able to bring our full selves to this work. And so your choice of icebreaker question, I'm going to be brutally efficient with timekeeping again, but your choice. So how have you experienced race this year compared with other years? Or describe a time you've ever overcome a struggle. And we're going to do the popcorn format again. So when you go, you will pick somebody else to call on afterwards. Would anybody like to start? Jen, you want to start?
Sure, I can start, but I want to also introduce Alicia Lessinger, who's joining us today as a new member of the team. She is an alumni of Hermosa. She is a current student at Miracosta, but it's Alyssa Lessinger. Is that how you pronounce her name?
Elisa.
Elisa, okay. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and just kind of give us I know you've had some interesting experiences at Miracosta too, so if we can just give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. So I'm currently a sophomore at Miracosta High School, and I was in the Hermosa School District from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. So all of my elementary and middle school years were in Hermosa. So this year I became a lot more involved in racial justice, especially in the education system. This year I joined Diversify Our Narrative in Miracosta High School, which is a student-run initiative working to diversify the curriculum within our school. And I'm actually the director of the data committee in that. So that's, so I think I've gotten a lot of experience from that and being part of the Manhattan Beach Panel of Equity in the Curriculum Reform Committee. Kind of the same as Diversify Our Narrative, but there's also adults and more college students in that one working to diversify the curriculum at Miracosta, and I really hope to make a difference in the Hermosa School District with you guys. Thank you.
Great, welcome. Excited to have you. So thank you for joining us and at the last minute, so thank you.
Jen, you volunteered to start.
Okay, I'll start. How have I experienced race this year compared to other years? I would say for my own personal self, I had always, this year has been obviously for me more intense, more unsure of how to talk about race than I ever have before. I had always worked in predominantly either Latino or Black communities, and so I was pretty comfortable being the only white person in the room and talking about my race being white, and being able to be open about that and talking about that. But then I feel like I have felt just a bit more paralyzed this year, I would say, on how to talk about things, what's comfortable and what's not. I wasn't in Los Angeles during a lot of the protests and things, so I had felt like I wanted to be a part of it, but I wasn't here physically. I was in a much more rural area. So it's just been more paralyzing. I haven't quite known how to what to do this year. So I'm thinking about that a lot. I will popcorn to Leah.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to look at or tackle the first question about how I've experienced race this year. It's definitely been a difficult year. I think I've gone at times gone from feeling resentful about people not acknowledging the fact that maybe, or that I was only African-American teacher in a white majority white school district during all of the Black Lives Movement and protests that happened in the spring, to feeling overly sensitive about people that did want to then talk. So I think I've just been all over the place. I realized that for quite a while, I didn't allow myself to actually truly acknowledge what was happening in our society because it was too painful. And then the day of George Floyd's family funeral services, I was on my way onto campus and listening to it on the radio. And that's when everything just kind of broke in me. And I couldn't hide from those feelings. So I've just been kind of all over the place. But I've, that's pretty much it. I will.
Thank you for sharing. Would you popcorn? Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Carrie.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of echo that feeling of being really overwhelmed. I think I've mentioned before, I'm an adoptive mom. We have 4 Black children. And as such, I've really made a point of diversifying our community, our friendships, their community. And I think what I realized is I have done an insufficient job of talking about race, actually, even in the midst of that. And I don't think I realized it until I reached out to friends to say, how are you doing? And experienced the magnitude of the pain that Leah's talking about. And actually had some really confronting and painful conversations, gutting with friends saying, why are you talking to me about this now? Why did it take now? And I always thought of myself as a really proactive racial justice person. I march and I donate and I attend classes. And like I said, I make an effort to diversify my kids' lives. And I just realized there's so much more that needs to be done, but I'm also so overwhelmed too. Like, I don't know where to begin. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here. And I'm really struck by how little we know about the Black experience in America, about racial injustice in America, about systemic racism and institutionalized racism. And I don't even know where to begin. It's so overwhelming, but I think the education system is a great place to start. And so I'm really gratified to be a part of this process. And there's just so much work to be done as a society.
Thanks, Carrie. Would you popcorn over?
I will. I'll go over to Erin Starr.
Right. Hi, everyone. So I've been trying to figure out what to say since I saw this question pop up. And I think that probably just speaks to the fact that it is extremely overwhelming. And it's a very, yeah, it's just very difficult to try and even put my finger on where to start with this. I've been teaching in South LA for 10 years now. And I came out of the UCLA social justice teaching program. And so I too thought I was, somewhere with this. And this year has really like knocked me back quite a lot, because even in our school community where, we have a lot of teachers who don't use the curriculum, we use Howard Zinn, or we've tried to diversify our curriculum so it matches our students. We're going through an audit right now on how we can better support our students, how we can be anti-racist and not just not a racist. That whole thing has been really eye-opening too. And so I think for me, it's really just been, looking at how I can do more, how I can do better with everything. And that's just where I am right now. It's just a lot.
Thanks, Erin. Who do you want to popcorn it to?
We'll go to Jennifer.
Hello, everybody. Tough question, I have to say. Being white, living in a predominantly white community, growing up in one, also back in Pennsylvania, I haven't always given race a lot of thought. And that's kind of hard to really say because it makes it sound like you don't care, but it's not something you think about when you're not the member of an oppressed group. And I remember back in June when I decided to really dive into a lot of the anti-racist, anti-bias, equity and education programs and do a lot of reading. One of the quotes that stuck in my mind was this notion that I think was very prevalent when I was raising my child, that you raise children to be colorblind. You raise children to just not see race. And the quote that stuck in my head was, only white parents have the luxury to raise their children or think they can raise their children to be colorblind. So it's really, I just feel like I'm reading everything I can get my hands on. I'm trying to do better and have those tough conversations with people like I might not talk to about it before. So that's kind of where I am right now, just really in the thick of it.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Sure. I'm looking to see who else is. Oh, Jason, there you are. All right, Jason.
Hey.
Hi.
I don't think anyone's taking overcoming a challenge at this point, so I'll keep it on race. Yeah, I kind of share Jen's sentiment that the question is, how have you experienced race this year compared with other years? And I'll be honest, like it's similar. You mean like from my perspective, you mean like in my own personal experience, you mean like how I'm experiencing race? Like I unfortunately this year, you mean like is not different. And I recognize that is part of privilege. You mean like that it's just the truth. You mean like that, you mean like, race or concern about race is not a big part of my personal experience. And like this year, I would say, if there's been an alteration, it's more in line with my daughter, and thinking about how she's going to navigate a racial world. And it's simple things, you mean like that are starting to come to light because she's getting older. And so there's more recognition of the difference between her mom and her dad. And I'm seeing it now, and it's interesting, but it's also a little scary as well too. And I don't really have a good answer for that. You mean like I'm that's new territory for me, being a dad, and I mean also navigating this new world with biracial daughters. So I'm learning right alongside you, But I think it's important to be honest and not say like, well, this has been a dramatic experience for me. It has not been for me. And I recognize that's part of the problem though. Oh, I got a popcorn. Sorry, I was lost in my thoughts. I'm gonna popcorn to Felicia.
Thanks, Jason. This is a tough question. I guess authentically, I can say that I really struggled this year because I just wanted to do great work as a parent on these issues. It was really important to me. This is my career. These are my values. This is what I worked so hard for in my professional life. And then at the dinner table, I really blew it. I'm having a lot of struggles, how to do this in an age appropriate way, in a way that's sensitive to the fact that I have a son with autism, to explain how this works in a way that he can understand, that my daughter can understand. And, this is hard work. It's not easy, and I'm not good at it as a parent. And I wanted to rock this, and I'm falling really short. And so, putting my energy where I feel like I can is important to me, and then just trying to be a better student so I can be a better parent. I don't know that my kids have emerged this year with good parenting around these issues. And I think that if nothing else comes of it, I don't know that I care about fractions. I really care about helping my children be good global citizens. And this is something that's right at the top of what it means to be a good citizen. And so reading and learning and listening is part of that. And so I'm a beginner here as a parent, and I admit that it's been a challenge. So
thanks, Felicia.
Hillary.
I guess in a way I can kind of answer both questions very quickly. As far as like how race is compared with other years, I kind of agree with Jason, maybe from a different perspective. I mean, I kind of feel like this year, even though it seems to be, people are a bit more concerned about it, which I find to be a huge positive, especially in seeing more of our white brothers and sisters out there, with us protesting, that was very encouraging. But as far as like the catalyst of it, of, George Floyd dying, I think the only difference in everyone seeing that is that they actually saw it. Whereas within the Black community and growing up in the Black community, these are things that we always knew that happened. I grew up near Ferguson, Missouri. My husband grew up in Ferguson, Missouri. So having gone through the whole Michael Brown thing, I don't know, it's kind of like been here, done this. I think a struggle for me personally that I had to overcome is that this time I had a 21-year-old senior in college son who wanted to go throw himself out in every protest there was in the country. And that of course stressed me out. And I actually had to come to some terms with myself over, just some guilt, and that I felt complacent and that I hadn't really done that much recently to really address these issues. And now here he is struggling with it and having to deal with it. And also I had to rein myself in because I was just like him when he was younger. I marched against apartheid and anything else that we found to be, unjust when we were in college. And so I could not prevent him from doing it. I just had to say good luck and go. So that's it for now. I mean, we all have a lot of things, I'm sure, in our heads, but I can sum it up there. So I will bounce it or popcorn over to Vivian. Have you said anything, Vivian?
I think this year it's been really inspiring to see how many conversations I think have happened regarding race. I think at least at Costa, like with Diversifier Narrative, it's really cool to see how like we can come together to like actually create change regarding like diversifying our curriculum and like having conversations about race and actually like affecting change. I think this was the first time like I was in my English classroom like digitally, but when like my teacher was actually talking about how we need to read works written by authors of color and like problematic literature, like racist works, and how like we're not reading Tom Sawyer this year, I think, because of like the uses of slurs in it and how we were actually talking about that. And I think that's the first time in an English class we've like talked about that. And I think that was really cool. But also it is kind of discouraging to see how like this has been going on for so long, and we are affecting change little bit by little bit, but like we still have so far to go. And then I think going to popcorn to Elisa. You haven't talked yet, right?
Yeah, so I guess this year it's just been very eye-opening for so many people, which I think is a really great thing, because before this year, I feel like there wasn't that much attention put on racial injustice in our country. Everyone knew it was a thing, but it was something that people didn't really, it was uncomfortable for people to talk about, so they just didn't talk about it. And I feel like growing up here in such a sheltered community, because we are predominantly white, there is a lot, even though there is, I feel, a lot less racism than other places, there's so much underlying prejudice that people don't actually talk about. And as a white passing Chinese American, I have experienced so much privilege that others do not have the privilege of having. But there's also been small amounts of prejudice jokes that I've experienced growing up on the basis of my race. And I realized like this year specifically, just how little racism was talked about in America. And it really made me think and become more involved, which I think a lot of people also experienced. It made them want to become more involved in this conversation and ways to make change, which I think is very encouraging. And just as Vivian said, there's just such a long way to go, but I think it's good that we're moving forward a little bit at a time.
I think that
who else
everyone. Yeah, did everyone get a chance? I think I just tallied that correctly.
Yep, only Maggie, only you're left.
And I thought I could sneak out of it. I just would like some of the things that I've really heard. I think in my lifetime, being able to actually have this conversation as a really public, pressing national conversation is something that, is the upside of 2020. In that, it is something that is being talked about at all levels of communities and societies. And so while I have my own privilege of having been able to not have to address this on a daily basis, for us to be able to talk about it as a community, I just find such a privilege for us to be able to really dive into this because it's present and it's been elevated and more people are aware of it. So it's for me the upside of 2020. And with that, let's move to the parking lot. Still the same 4 items here, but we're going to be adding some more to this based off of, I think, the definitions and the language that came through today. And so, Jen, I think I'm passing it to you for the next slide to talk about the equity definition.
Great. And Michelle, I think that it would be helpful. I'm not sure if you got this, Michelle, but I sent one final like consolidated version. So we can all look at it at the same time. Do you want me to put it in the chat?
I think this is it, Jen.
Yes. Move my chat off. So basically what I did here, everyone, is the definition at the top. Sorry, a couple things I wanted to also mention before we started. We did talk to the board about extending our time. So I just wanted everyone to know that we aren't pressed for a December 9th like presentation to the board on data and an opinion yet. So we've kind of we asked for an extended month. So we will look at meeting in January and talking about where we're at with some recommendations. That was the big aha I just wanted to share. So in terms of the draft definition is the one that was originally we originally put forth. Then Felicia, gracious, I just really appreciate everyone's work on this because there's a lot of you did a lot of great thinking and work to add to this. Felicia gave us what I titled as the revised definition. And then I also included on this, if you can scroll up, Michelle, just a hair. I added in everyone's comments right here. So if you can just take a few minutes to read the revised version that Felicia did and the comments. The comments, like the first comment where it says definition comments, the first comment is referring to the original definition, just so everyone's clear on that. I'm not sure if can everyone read this?
Is it in the Google Drive that you sent to us?
Michelle, is it in that Google Drive?
No, I can, let me see if I can grab this and then see if you can all share it, if I can share it with you.
Or maybe just zoom the screen that you're on. Maybe that would be enough.
And Felicia, would you mind reading it out loud? I think it's just sometimes easier to.
I'm happy to. Of course, what happens when you read your own stuff later is you're like, oh, I have like 20 things I would change. But
would you want me to? I can read it for sure.
No, that's quite all right. Is that the Equity Task Force is committed to equitable practices and experiences for all students and staff in order to mitigate social inequities and embrace human diversity. The district will place emphasis on equity, diversity, social justice, critical reflection, and inclusion. As a district, we will provide access and opportunity for every student and work to eliminate wait, am I reading the right one? Oh yeah, inequities, so that our students are critical thinkers, effective contributors, global citizens, and compassionate contributors. We recognize that educational equity goes beyond formal equality, where all students are treated the same, and instead fosters a barrier-free environment where all students have the opportunity to succeed. I think I won't lie, I pulled some things from other places, but tried to have that last sentence be kind of suggestive of the issues that Aaron had brought up in our first meeting, that Carrie's meme had that suggested. It's actually the same one that I had sent in too. So I think the idea that we're going to look at this kind of holistically, whereas the other piece that we wrote was far more suggestive of identity, and instead of kind of what we're going to do as opposed to who we're going to support. So that's kind of how I was differentiating. There's a lot of words here, and each of them is really important. So feel free to pull it apart. I like collaborative writing. So this was, my attempt, but it shouldn't be the last attempt. And I certainly don't take anything about it personally. So that's kind of where I left us.
Well, thank you for the beginning. We appreciate it. I know that Vivian had some comments that I thought were pretty relevant here, and I'm not sure they are as, if we looked at using this definition, if they're actually necessary or not. But Vivian, if you want to jump in.
Sure, yeah, I think now that since we're shifting to more of like a less identity-based definition based on this, most of my comments were regarding like the first couple sentences, because that's what we were talking a lot about in previous meetings.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really like this new definition that you've written. I think one thing we were talking about was the inclusion of staff and students in this. Mm-hmm. And staff and student is included in one of the first sentences, but then it shifts to only talking about students. So I just wanted to clarify, are we including staff and students, or is this just going to be student-based?
It's a good question. Let's think about that as we go through and just hear from other people. And then I just wanted to clarify the last question, the last comment, I think was something. Carrie, I think you might have had a couple thoughts on that too. Do you want to jump in on this too? I know you've given some great feedback.
No, I'm looking at my notes. I gave a lot of, I went long. I also like, Felicia, how you made it less identity based and more kind of purposeful and missional. And it's kind of like, I can't remember who earlier referred to being anti-racist versus I'm not racist, but I'm anti-racist. And, you know, those kind of action words I think are really forgiving because they acknowledge that we're not perfect and that this is a continuous work in progress, but this is our commitment. This is our culture. This is our mission and objective as a school community. I do like the idea of including faculty, staff, and students because I think representation is really important. And we live in a very white, privileged, you know, upper socioeconomic community, and that's not reflective of our world at large. So how do we prepare world citizens? And I really like that as part of some of the mission work that we're talking about. I printed out what I sent you, but I can't read very well.
No, can I highlight a couple parts for you that I really,
yeah, please.
I think,
if anything resonated, because I need to get my eyes checked.
With me. But I liked the part where you said equity isn't just important for minority and marginalized communities who need funding, access, and support services. The entire student population and our community at large benefits from a culture focused on inclusion, diversity, and understanding and appreciation of differences. And I say that because I keep coming back to, we're serving a very, you know, the population in Hermosa Beach is much different than the world at large, like you were saying.
Right.
And I think that it's really important for our community to buy into what we're going to ask of them.
That's right.
And we need to find a way to make people understand that it's not just for students that are of BIPOC or students that are LGBTQ+. It is for all students and all people in our community, really what we're trying to do here.
Right, right.
So I feel like there might need to be a little bit of that kind of language in the definition or in a mission. Maybe it's more in a mission.
It might live in mission. And I think I even wrote that comment like, I'm not sure what belongs to definition or mission, and we'll all, you know, tear it apart. Like Felicia says, I enjoyed the collaborative process as well. But to your point, and that's why I inserted it as a comment, you know, like Jason said, our lives are relatively unchanged. And I actually had to depart from a Hermosa Beach community Facebook page after the George Floyd incident and just listening to the commentary, because it became very painful for me and very overwhelming to me, because I realized our lives really aren't impacted, and they should be. And so how do we change that, our cultural narrative? And I think it's a moral imperative. And I feel really lucky because I'm kind of straddling two worlds, right? I've been in Hermosa Beach since 2002. I've had a child in this district, but we moved her to Westside Neighborhood School, which really has an agenda toward diversity. You know, sexual identity, socioeconomic, learning differences, and of course, racial diversity, religious diversity, and seeing that mission as a school and that pillar and everything surrounding that. And then when you talk to the kids and they say the things that they say that they love about their school is, I love that it's inclusive, and I love that we don't have bullying here, and we nip that stuff in the bud before it, you know, as soon as it surfaces. And I realize it's almost like this nice little bubble that they've created over there. Well, we're known for our bubble, so why not change our bubble through our kids? Look at our kids on this call right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are like world changers. The language that they're using, mm-hmm. saying, I'm a white, what did you say, Elisa, that I'm a white passing Asian American. Like the sensitivity around the language that she's using is so, it's compassionate, it's empathetic, it's in tuned. And I love, like, so what are we doing as adults to make sure that, you know, it's not just these changers who are on this call, but it becomes part of all of our conversations. So anyway, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a hard sell potentially in our community, but I know there are a lot of people who will be on board, and that's why I'm going long with my here's one of my people. But you captured exactly why I wanted to include that. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more. I think that if we don't say it's everybody's work and everybody's effort and everybody's responsibility, what's going to happen is the experience that I have had, which is that's somebody else's work. That's somebody else's job. That's somebody else's experience. And I don't have it, so I don't have to worry about it. And I mean, this happens to people every day, but you know, I can go into a million examples that we all can about, you know, I had an experience with my son and I went in and said, this isn't going to work. This isn't right. And people said, the rest of the kids are having fun though. They love this. And I'm like, why would we let kids love this? This is mean spirited. And my son needs those kids to appreciate that. It's not him that needs to change. It's the laughing at others that needs to change. It's the thinking that it's an other issue that needs to change. So I really believe that if we don't articulate that piece of it, we're going to give people a pass to do the heavy lifting and the really important work. So I think that that's a message and a piece that we really want to include.
So in order for us to kind of get to a definition that we want to kind of put our, you know, our hand, or, you know, our stamp on, is there anyone that I'm not sure how to do this, because at some point we probably need to like just define it and see if like, let's agree to it and move on to the other stuff. Is anybody interested in like using the revised version with maybe adding that language in about equity as an important, you know, the last line I just read?
Jen, if it's helpful, feel free to throw everything that this group likes in that revised. We can just decide that we want it in. I'll wordsmith it for us if we want later, so we're not doing both the conceptual and the actual at the same time. Like, you know, if we like something, we throw it in, and then we can all make it come together nicely.
Okay.
You know, and have the sentences align in the right tense and everything later. So if that's helpful, I'm happy to do that.
Hillary, Jen, Leah, Elisa, Erin.
If I could just add something to that, like just from like personal experiences, especially like for a couple of years, just being the only Black student at my school, sometimes I found that people wanted to ask questions of me and they would be afraid to do so. And then for myself, also coming from, you know, the area where I grew up in, you know, when I met my Japanese friend, I was like, oh, hey, what's going on over there? So I think I do like what Carrie said about, you know, focus on how that inclusion and diversity can benefit the culture as a whole. And maybe something like just to embrace the community more at large, just, you know, just because you don't know something doesn't mean that you should necessarily be afraid of it. We need to, again, go back to that language that Felicia had about embracing it. And maybe something about, you know, just not being afraid to discover each other's differences and to appreciate that. So I don't know, maybe we can work something about that in there, which will make, you know, the larger society feel more inclusive into what we're trying to do. Yeah, and that's just coming from my end of what it's like when I finally have to tell people like, hey, don't worry, you know, you get a pass, just ask me anything so we can just move on from this moment. Yeah.
Hillary, I picked up some bullet points from some of the other documents that they sent out to us that might be good language. Felicia, if you're grabbing it, engage in courageous conversations.
Oh, I like that.
Right. That's a good one.
Do you want me to wait for you to type?
I'm just going to
celebrate. Okay, celebrate diversity and multiculturalism community-wide, and then also just the continuous learning. I liked that language about being continuous learners.
Yeah, I saw that in the Brain Bridge Island.
Yeah, that must be where I picked it up.
Yeah, I thought that was really good. Right.
Can you repeat the first two you said, Carrie?
Engage in courageous conversations, and then celebrate diversity and multiculturalism, community-wide. I feel like that speaks to what Hillary was just talking about. There's a celebration of it. There's engagement about it. That's part of what we do. That's part of our learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's a great way to state it.
I took some notes, Felicia. We'll pull them together.
Okay, I'm taking some too, so we'll make this. This is getting good.
Does everyone feel like we're on the right track here? Anybody have other things they wanted to add?
We might, they another bullet point that I picked up, I can't remember whose, it said embrace human diversity, which is different than celebrate. I kind of like the word celebrate because it's really positive. I like embracing as well, but maybe we might consider adding the word human in front of diversity. I think sometimes when we say diversity, we tend to think more along the lines of racial diversity, whereas human diversity, I think, celebrates some of what, like, you know, learning differences and socioeconomic differences and sexual orientation, religious differences. Maybe it feels a little broader to me.
Yeah.
But that could just be my perception.
No, I would agree with you. So with that, can we agree that we're going to move on now? We'll revisit this one more time in December and see how we feel at that point. I think we'll have nailed it by then, or a version.
Did we sorry, one question. Did we want to, did we answer sufficiently the question about whether or not we wanted to include representation through the student population, faculty, staff, and curriculum?
I think we should, but that's my opinion.
I just wondered if that's one piece I feel like we didn't, maybe it made your definition. I can't remember, Felicia.
It is in the top part, the first sentence, but it's not.
It is, okay.
It just wasn't carried through.
Okay.
I think it could be expanded just a little bit because students and staff doesn't really talk about curriculum and faculty. And I think if we're really, I mean, going back to what Vivian said, that's a game changer for our students to have those critical conversations. So I'm going to put that in there a little bit and come back to the group. I like that.
Okay. We're going to move on today. Thanks. That was really great. Great conversation. Thank you, everyone. Keep going, Michelle. I think we're on to on the agenda, Maggie. Are we on mission and vision now and governance? Yeah. How much time did we allocate for that? I can't hear you.
Double mute. We initially allocated 10 minutes because this last conversation went a little bit over, like we're just moving into the data conversation, but that's fine. We can prioritize getting through this for a little bit. So 10 minutes. Okay,
let's take a look then at the, can everyone see the document that Michelle might have sent that has like all the just comments regarding the mission and vision? Or a mission?
Jim, just a question around process. Just to close the loop off of that last piece. So for folks who have additional thoughts, if they want to continue editing, they'll just put their thoughts in that document as comments.
I think that's a good spot.
Okay. So if anybody, after you've taken some time and you don't want to voice over right here, you can continue editing down at the bottom. Just make sure to put your name or do some sort of demarcation with the date so we can see where the comments pick up.
So regarding mission and vision, I think we don't really have one that is stated as ours. We just have one. We had kind of sent out a selection of some to to see what we wanted to pick and choose from. Does anyone want to? I know Carrie, you had some thoughts on that as well. And Felicia, I know you had some thoughts on that as well. I think you actually drafted something, Felicia.
Oh, well, we should, Felicia's documents are good to edit around.
Maybe Michelle, you can, it was one of the ones you had included in the, it had a lot of red lines on it.
Oh, I apologize. I did track changes because I was trying to.
Michelle, it would have been in one of the documents you would have sent to everyone.
Okay, let me find it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If everyone can look on their own screens too, they probably would be able to find it. It would have been in one of the first emails from Michelle regarding the meeting. It's called Equity Task Force Statement Draft from Felicia Hunt. Felicia.
I think this is it.
Boy, does Felicia know how to use track changes or what? I apologize for all of this. You can see I was looking at stuff with lots of red lines on it, so the spell check hasn't gone through. Here's where I put identities. I think that's something that's really needs to line up with our other policies at the district level, and needs to make sure that it is incredibly inclusive. So some of them in here, again, excuse the spelling, some of them in here I added. They were not in our original statement, but making sure that we were inclusive of DACA students. So I put citizenship or other protected classes, gender identity, gender, sex, making sure that we were differentiating. Please chew this up and make any changes that you see, because I was also going through my daily life. Like, I want family model to be in here, but that needs to be a committee conversation. But I put it in there because I thought, boy, have I seen some family models feel left out of some of our district activities. And being inclusive around that is important to me. So feel free to, it won't hurt me at all to just jump in, and again, I'll fix all of the typo pieces.
Is it possible, because for some reason I'm having a difficult time getting into the Google Docs, so I'm having to look at your screen, and I have a small computer screen and very old eyes. Can you make it a little bigger?
I'll just send it to you just now. I just sent it to you.
Okay, perfect.
Anybody else need it sent to them? Anybody else need it sent to them in the chat?
I don't know if it's the same problem that Carrie is having, but when I click on it in the chat, it says I need access. But if I click on it through the email sent, it's all there. So maybe just go to the email and click into the Google Doc from there. But the one in the chat, it's not working for me.
To share in the chat, I believe you need to turn on link sharing on the Google Doc.
Yeah, I'm getting a message when I go in through my email that says it's in the owner's trash folder. And so it's not letting me open it. But I love that our young people know how to do the links in the Google Docs.
Yeah. Did that work at all? Or maybe Felicia, you have to
Yeah, and of course I'm reading this and mortified by when you do track changes, you just can't see everything. And so when we accepted the changes, we accepted my bad formatting, spelling, and tense. How
we're work in progress here. We're just thankful that you did it. So let's start with that.
Well, if the spirit of it is that we're going to be thoughtful around these different groups, and that we're going to embrace and value this work, and that we're going to do what we can to improve, evaluate, revise, and support. So I think for the question that I had first was are we inclusive of identities? And if that list is inclusive, I can make the rest of it clean in terms of how it reads.
Can I get some feedback from everyone here? Is everyone able to see the document we're talking about? Great.
And especially students, like if there's language that you're hearing or using at school that you like, let's get it in there. I want students to feel connected to this work.
You know, I like that you use the word like affirming. I also liked I think it was Bainbridge, they added a definition. So when we say something like we affirm our commitment to educational equity, I'm wondering if it might, and here's what, I guess we have a separate definition for identities, for equity, so maybe that doesn't matter. I retract my comment.
I think this might be the place where we add in the place about equity isn't just important for minority and marginalized communities who need funding.
Like that.
Yeah. And I like that the moral and ethical responsibility. I think I'm just trying to continually frame it as like, how are we going to continually get our community to buy into what we're doing? This cannot be just the committee here.
Yeah, that it is a moral responsibility or a moral imperative.
Jason and Leah, when you hear that, in terms of when you're thinking of it from the staff or the district perspective, can you shine some light, or Jennifer?
I'm sorry, I was reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll be quiet. You go ahead.
No. Can you just repeat? I was hearing bits and pieces. I'm so sorry.
No, I was just thinking, when you hear us saying things like it's a moral imperative, or it's something, you know, it's the equity isn't just important for minority and marginalized communities who need funding, access, and support services. The entire student population, our community at large, benefits from a culture focused on, you know, those kind of things. When you're thinking of it in terms of the staff and the families that we serve, or just like how to get buy-in with teachers in the community, I'm just wanting it to live outside of this group right here. So when I'm thinking of what words we use and how we position it, I'm always thinking of the community and the staff.
I'm trying to envision what the implementation of this will look like. And so forgive me for not having a lot to say right now, because I am taking it in. And I guess I'm kind of looking at it like, okay, let's see where does this go? What does this do? And so I think that's where I'm at right now. Just, I want to see it flushed out. And so I'm really just trying to still wrap my head around some of this. So, because I do think there's still training that needs to happen within the district, but it needs to be thoughtful and it needs to be meaningful. And I think, you know, in the past we've done things that are well-intentioned, but a bit shallow. And so that's my concern.
Yeah. Jennifer, did you have a perspective, or Jason?
Well, I stumble a little bit on the word moral. Not that I don't feel that it is a moral imperative. I feel very strongly that it is, but I think we have to be careful about having words sometimes that imply judgment, and sometimes moral can feel a little sticky like that. It's just a thought. I don't object to it, because I said, you know, I very strongly feel that way, that this is a moral imperative, but I think we do have to be careful about choosing certain words that could very easily push someone away without even, you know, exploring further.
Yeah. Jason?
Yeah, same thing. My line of thought is very similar to Leah's, just from a district standpoint. I mean, like that implementation is really going to be the question. And in regard to like the overarching statements, I do think they're good guides and they're important. I would say though that you want to make sure that these statements, I mean, like, are accessible to like the broader community. And I do think that if you narrow, you get very specific. I mean, like access to the broader community, maybe just that, or maybe viewed as just like a niche. I mean, like, or I'm going to say it like a pet project, and not truly accessible to the broader community. Which, I mean, like we've talked about in this conversation, that a lot of this work is targeted to the majority demographic. That it's not just about educating, supporting students in a minority class, but also about educating students and, for that matter, staff and families in the majority class. So in turn, I think that that's where, you mean, like if someone's going to read a statement like this, then they're going to have those questions. And it's also important to keep in mind too that, you know, like those that serve on the equity task force, right? These are people that are open-minded to this work. Unfortunately, not all will be. So how do you bring those people in? And that's a broader question. So that's where I think that comes back to the implementation piece.
Yeah, maybe we'll have some role models nationally that can help us with that, how to bridge divides. I'm being sarcastic, but yes, I agree. Well, how about for now we'll let Felicia take and wordsmith a little more where she's at, and then we can bring it again back to everyone's attention. Or we can actually bring it to your attention before that, if Felicia, you have time to wordsmith it maybe before the holidays, and then people have the time over the break maybe to take a look in all of your free time.
Of course. I think that, you know, I did notice that we left off socioeconomic status here, and I think that's an important piece of it. And that we said it was a statement on diversity and equity. We probably want to offer inclusion, so that people who are coming are different phases of their understanding, education, appreciation, can feel like they can be on the path with us. It's not that if you're not here at the right phase, you're left off. So yeah, let me go back to wordsmithing and come back to all of you. And I think before the holidays is a good goal.
Great, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for the input on these two parts. I think we can officially move on to the next section, Maggie. 503.
Great. So everyone, we are going to go back into the CASP data and do breakout work. So Michelle, if you could go down a slide. Keep going down. David, CASP. Excellent. And I'm going to put in the chat the small group work, and let me add our newest folks to this. See, Alicia will be added to this. Okay, so we broke up into two groups to focus on the data last time. And just a reminder of what the data is, or what the small group data is. And the goal out of this is really to spend some time to create summative statements. So to create, like, looking at the data and actually write down the narrative of what the data is telling us. So we don't want to do any interpretation of like what it could be, right? Or what it should be, right? Like right now we're just trying to gather the facts of what the data is telling us off of this work. And so with that, those are the small groups. Let me put a link to the notes again in the chat. And if you could give me a thumbs up if you are able to see the CASP data that was sent over earlier. Give me a thumbs up if you, oh, did I send that all to Jen? I just sent all of that to Jen. Oops. I meant to send that to everybody. Let me try that again. So those were the groups that you'll be looking at the data for. Thumbs up if you have access to the CASP data. Thumbs down if you need access to the CASP data. Thumbs up from Vivian, thank you. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up.
Sorry,
Great.
I'm looking for it.
Okay, no problem. Leah's looking for it too. Aaron, were you able to find it? Great, thank you. So let me pause for a minute and just take a pause for any clarifying questions off of the work we're going to do now in small groups. Okay, so let's do the next 10 minutes in groups. Feel free to chat, feel free to voice over, but this is really looking at your section. So if you are in group A, you are looking at the data based off of race and gender. If you are in group B, you are looking at the data based off of English language learner status or special education status. And we are putting in the story of the data in this work here. There is a parking lot down at the bottom if you have curiosity around the other data. So if this is making you think about things, you know, feel free to put that into this bottom area. And so we can dive into it at the next point. We're at the halfway point, everyone. Okay, everyone, we're in our last minute. So let's come back to the work we're doing here, and just want to offer up some space to share any thoughts, any reflections off of the data.
Was everyone able to find it's called the small group data collection sheet to write down your questions or your comments? Yes, I see Hillary nodding. Yes, okay.
I really appreciate the comments down at the bottom there about data we're curious about, and are we missing any narratives? I think some really good leads there to follow up on. Anything surprising, positive or negative that you saw?
I mean, it's hard when we know how small the numbers are, you know, that is this really statistically significant, but I do understand what you educated us on a couple weeks ago about how this is how funding comes in. You know, it's just, it's interesting to me because I'm looking at the racial groups right now, how high the performance is and improving, you know, gradually, small performance, but still performance improvements in meeting or exceeding standards in ELA and math for the Asian population being the highest performing among all ethnic groups, including the sub-Asian groups. And of course, our white population. And then you go into the Hispanic population and the African American population, and the meeting and exceeding standards are they're very low. And so, you know, just noteworthy. And of course, English language learners would not be as much of a surprise, but.
Alicia, I think you had said you were on the Manhattan Beach data team. Any thoughts from your own data collection experience thus far?
Yeah, it's just very interesting to see like the disproportionate data between the different racial groups.
Thanks for sharing. So I'd like to just offer up the thought that, you know, Jen and I will go through and do some, try and do some trend analysis off of this work here and see if there's anything else we're missing. But we have 3 other data sets to get through, right? We have California Healthy Kids, we have some attendance data, and we also have the iReady data. And so, you know, like know that there's other data sets that we're going to keep moving through. So this will, you know, if you want to keep playing around with this, like just let Jen and I know if you want to keep going through the data and adding comments, but we'll end up moving on to the next data set. And Jen and I will provide feedback off of all of this into some summary statements so we can do the benchmark and trend analysis at our next meeting. Does that feel like a right next step to everybody? Jen, I just threw that on you. Happy Thanksgiving.
I know. That's right. I'll be here.
Okay. I think you are doing the closeout, Jen, for exit ticket and next steps.
So I'm going to just say on everyone's homework next time is, as everyone, it's okay if you haven't. I've done plenty of these groups where you get right up to the moment and you're in it and you're like, I haven't read that thing yet. So it's okay if you haven't read it yet. But the California Healthy Kids Survey, can we just get a sense, was everyone able to, or have you yet read through it? If you have, put your thumb up. If you're like on there, you're still looking, it's okay. If you haven't, no problem, no guilt. Okay, no worries. So let's say between now and if you can, you know, take a little, like a, you know, hour break in your Thanksgiving time period to do kind of the same run through we've just done with this CASP data. I think it helps to look at it a few times and sit with it. And it's much more palatable, the California Healthy Kids Survey, to read through. But since we have a few years of data, and the questions are actually kind of interesting, so it reads a little more like a book than it does graphs and circles. So please, if you can take some homework time to take a look at it, we'd really appreciate that. So we can kind of come to the next section in December and have a good breakout room again, like we just did. That I think this has been, like, to me, you know, I'm not going to prep the the form that we're about to ask you to look at. But this has been a better meeting that we've had. Just I feel like we've gotten through a lot of work and we've actually been able to look at things together, and not just always just hear Maggie and I talking, which has been like something we've been trying to really work against. So with that said, though, we have given you an exit ticket tonight, which is it's just really a form that kind of helps us to gauge like how you think things are going, if you think things are missing, if the task force is kind of living up to the expectation you had of what it would be, or how we could make it better. So we're just trying to improve. And Maggie, did I miss something?
Jen, do you want to go through just the timelines on the next couple slides? We have some timeline stuff.
Oh yeah, let's look at those. Sorry. Yeah, so we are going to, so in December we have another board meeting, so we will update them after. We'll have another meeting with the equity task force, and then we have a December 9th board meeting, so we'll give them some good meat at that board meeting. January 13th is when we wanted to shoot for having the clear benchmarks and goals. So kind of that's why we're trying to really, let's start moving through this data with more efficiency and with having our questions and our holes. So that's our goal date. Again, if we have to kind of take a relief valve on that, we can always ask, but it'd be great for us to kind of keep pressing forward to keep the work moving. And then we'll do, by January 13th, we've also in our resolution said we would establish a trimester monitoring system that monitors student, staff, and student progress towards achievement benchmarks. But that would require us to create some achievement benchmarks before then. So we will keep our eyes on that second letter C. We'll keep our eyes on that to see if we're ready for that by January 13th, based off of being ready for letter B prior to that. And then March 10th is still the board meeting where we wanted to kind of do a presentation of work. So whether we are able to hit that or we want to move it back by a month based off of our moving back our December due date to a January date. So they may all fall in line, but we may want to just keep the pedal to the metal here. So we'll keep gauging our success after each meeting. So, but anyway, just wanted to keep you guys up to speed on what our goals are by these dates, potentially. Next slide, Michelle.
Jen, I just put the exit ticket in the chat.
Okay, is that the last thing on there?
I think that should be the last slide, yeah.
Okay. So again, we just, we created this Google form for everyone to kind of fill out. You can do it right now with the last 5 minutes, or, we would prefer to just get feedback from everyone quickly. And that's all we have for tonight. Any other comments, questions, concerns, good books you're reading, good articles that you want to share?
Actually, Jen, you and I had talked about that. We had thought about if there was any literature that we wanted the group to norm around. Did you want to uplift that?
Yeah, I've been doing some reading. I know, Carrie, you shared an incredible resource list from the Westside Neighborhood School. I mean, it's an incredible resource list. So I'm not sure what other people are reading. I know on my desk right now, I just finished this book, Between the World and Me. I'm not sure if everyone has read something like that, or if people are more interested in. I always find with groups like this, sometimes having some common literature that we're all reading or we've all read kind of helps us have some norming language or thoughts. So if anybody's interested in that, proposing a book, proposing an article, proposing an author or a podcast or something that everyone wants to read.
Jen, you need to do permissions off the form, it looks like.
I do.
Off of the exit ticket, just got a note that permissions need to be updated.
Let's see. I don't know if I thought you created it, Maggie.
Did I create it? Hold on. Try again. I had it restricted to HBCSD folks only.
Are you asking me to try again or everyone?
For anybody who's just tried it, try again right now. Just do a refresh.
Okay. It works now.
So if anybody wants to take on, you know, potentially suggesting a podcast, a book, an article, I'm happy to high five you in that and push those books and things forward. But, or I can just choose one. But
I'll recommend.
Hillary, you'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, I can even recommend one now if anybody has time to listen to the 1619 Project. It's a podcast. I'm on Spotify. I'm so behind with it. I just finished episode 2. There's a lot there.
Okay.
But it's very interesting, and just speaking about slavery and how it defines all of us. And I do mean all of us. So that is really, it's been fascinating. Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm gonna say thumbs up to that, to encourage us all to maybe listen to something the same between now and when we meet again, if you have time, between children and, you know, all the other things we have in our life. Yeah, Carrie.
I'm gonna offer something. This is kind of an unconventional suggestion, but since it is kind of family time hanging around, if no one's watching Blackish with your family yet, it's actually a really fun and well-written show. And since most of us are white families in very white communities, and it really normalizes relationships and experiences. It's a really funny show, but it's also very clever because it writes in significant racial issues, social justice issues, and they're timely, they're relevant, they're current event issues. And I'll give you an example. I didn't know about Juneteenth until I learned about it watching Blackish. Like I've learned about Black history. I didn't learn about redlining until I watched Blackish. Now I shouldn't be learning about redlining and Juneteenth from a sitcom, but I am. So that speaks to our educational issue, which was again why we're all here. But I mean, remember we all grew up, you know, watching the Cosby Show. This is kind of like our modern day Cosby Show, except so far as I know, no one's going to prison for inappropriate behavior from it. But anyway, I think that's just a really fun way just to build community if you don't have Black friends as part of your life. And I would just recommend it. It's our family's favorite show. We watch it all the time on repeat. Watch the Monopoly episode. It's hilarious.
Okay. Thank you. Well, that's a great way to end. So with that, we'll ask you to fill out the form, which is just 3 small questions, and wish you all a really happy Thanksgiving, and very grateful that you all are taking your time to just be with us every couple weeks. I know you're all extremely busy, and really great job on giving us all the feedback and thoughts too. So we really appreciate other people doing some of the work here. So very appreciative.
Did you need us, and if you do, please just say it, to do any reporting out? I know we've kind of asked, you talk about you reporting out, and I'm happy to let you report out, but if you need us to report out,
that might be just amazing.
I think tag us in, because I know you said, does anybody want to be able to do that? And it's not that I want, but I know we're a working team, we're a working group, and so if you need us to be part of that work, tag us in. Otherwise, I'm happy to have the 2 of you represent. But if you would like us to step up as part of that reporting effort, and that's part of our work, just say so, and I'm happy to raise my hand for the July meeting, right? Because
for the July is always yeah. We also know how these board meetings sometimes go, and then there's people there until 10 o'clock at night, and you're like, wait, I'm so sorry I didn't get to you earlier. So, but yes, thank you so much. We will definitely take you up on that offer. Elisa and Vivian, thank you for being such great participants. We appreciate your time. And thank you, everyone. Good night. We'll sign off from now. Thank you, Michelle.